What is up, my good people of the internet? Hope you're having yourselves a fantastic morning this morning and having yourselves a great start to your week. So I hope all is well. Hope you had a great weekend watching some football, enjoying a crazy weekend of football from college football bleeding into the NFL yesterday. So many things going on as college football has its final 2 weeks of the regular season coming up, and we will then jump into the NFL, knowing that we are now, and this happens to me every single year. The NFL has week 1, week 2, week 3. I'm excited, and then all of a sudden it's week 11, and I'm sitting here thinking to myself, playoffs, seeding, where's everybody at? So it happens quickly. Enjoy it as it happens so that it doesn't pass you by, right? They say celebrate the moment. So inside of MonPazPopcorn.com. And speaking of celebrating the moment, Mon Paz Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory and their website, MonPazPopcorn.com, telling you what's poppin'. Celebrate all your moments by grabbing those snacks on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. Whether you're watching your favorite football team, basketball team, hockey team, soccer team, or you're getting ready for baseball season, watching a movie, catching up on Hulu, binging on Netflix, Mon Paz is the place to go. 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. We're here this morning with Kevin Greene, Syracuse Orange Football alum, who's joined me here before. We're going to be talking about God, faith, Syracuse football, and the NFL here picture in picture, and I will waste no time bringing him in. We appreciate your patience this morning as we got set with Kevin, as we are picture in picture with Mr. Greene. Kevin, how are you?
Good, Dan. Good morning. Good morning. Sorry, I had a couple of things I had to take care of this morning, but always a pleasure to get online and talk God, football, sports, just relevant life topics with you.
Yeah, we always having the opportunity to do that with each other is an honor and a blessing to me, and I always appreciate your time, appreciate your messages. There's something that you sent me recently that I want to get into here, and that message that you sent me was, let me get to the last one that you sent me, and that one was here. It was one on a Thursday. There it is. Forgive people in your life, even those who are not sorry for their actions. Holding on to anger only hurts you, not them. And I wanted to get into that with you because a lot of people live by the belief, and I thought this growing up, that forgiveness was for other people. Forgiveness was telling the person that hurt you that it's okay, that, whatever you did is fine. And so I struggled in my life growing up. I don't want to say struggled, but I was trying to grapple with, if I forgive them, that I'm telling them that what they did is okay and they can do it again. But forgiveness is not that at all. It's for you, not for the person that hurt you. And it's for you to be able to let go of your pain and your angst and your anger. And I'd love for you to get into that because there are grown adults that believe that they can't forgive because they have to hold on to the pain that hurt them so that that person knew that they hurt them, when in actuality it's like drinking poison every day.
Yes, I used to be like you a while also, but then what I mean by that text message that I sent is that sometimes when someone hurts you or someone angers you or someone disappoints you and they does something that betrays you or makes you seem less than the person that you are, you hold on to that grudge. You hold on that grudge, and that grudge stays inside you. But that person is out there living their life and having a good time and enjoying themselves. But you on the inside, whenever you see that person, you think about that person, you're holding on to an anger, to a grudge inside you that's tearing you up from the inside.
Yeah.
I've had a situation with a dear friend just over the last, beginning football season. Um, we were talking about the whole situation with Dion and everything he's doing down at Colorado. And I put a post on Facebook just saying, hey, they're real, they're live. And this person came at on the post and had some comments and had some really negative comments. And I was trying to keep it more a positive, upbeat thing about the situation that's going on, Dion. And that caused a debate between us. And some things were said, and I cut him off. And it's because, I felt the way I felt about it. I thought that I was trying to do something motivational, trying to do something uplifting for a guy who I think walked into a situation where he's turned over that team two, threefold. The first couple of games, they were very competitive. I didn't expect them to go out and win the championship or even contend, but I like what he's doing. I think he's motivating. He's getting those young men to where they need to be. And this person went the complete other way. And I had to drop it. And then, having conversations with my wife and stuff like that, I realized that I was still internalizing that and I was still holding that grudge. But I just had to say, you know what? I let it go. I move on. If we talk, we talk. But that was just on my mind a lot that day. And I said, you know what? When you holding on to grudges, when people hurt you, you're hurting yourself internally more than that person will ever feel the impact.
Yeah, and I've been there. I've been there, and you talk about, like, you see the person and it brings it back up again, or the person posts something and it brings it back up again, and you just keep going through it. You go through that pain, that trauma, that angst, whatever you want to define it as, whatever you want to call it. You go through it every single time you interact with that person, and even when you don't interact with that person, somebody mentions them. And I remember that, going through some things that I had gone through in my life. I remember when somebody would bring up someone that was no longer a part of my life and they would say something about that person, it would make me angry. And I remember having that conversation literally 2 days ago, or yeah, it was the day before yesterday. So having that conversation and just kind of talking through, that it bothers me when you talk about this person and you talk about them in this way because you know what happened and you know that they hurt me. When you bring it up it's almost like you don't see it. And having that conversation with somebody so close to me, I said, I was like, I know the pain that they caused me. And whenever we talk about that person and that pain, you say, well, we don't know if they actually did it. We're not sure if it actually happened. And to me, there was no doubt that something had happened and something occurred. And every time I would bring it up, I would go through that. I would go back to that moment, back to that day, back to when I found out everything that kind of broke. And I was like, I don't want to be there. I don't. And I do a lot of comedy about past relationships, and I joke around about, ex-girlfriends, and, talk to people on a grander scale of, ex-girlfriend, ex-boyfriends. I have exes that are girls, you have exes that are guys. Let's talk about the fact that there's a silver lining through the crazy. And I try to help people deal with their problems through comedy, but it took me a long time, and I told people this. I will never get on a stage. I will never talk about my comedy if I'm not healed. I have to be healed from the story that I'm telling. And that takes time. And if I'm telling a story and people are laughing and I come off of it exhausted, stressed out, pained, I'm like, okay, you know what? I haven't healed from that yet. It might be funny to them, but it's not funny to me. I never wanted to be the tortured comedian. And I think there's a lot of them out there because comedians come from a place of real, genuine pain, things that we've gone through.
Yep.
And
Yep.
and everybody goes through pain, and we handle it in different ways. And I had a decision to make years ago in college when I dated one girl that was very physically and verbally abusive. And I had a choice. I had a crossroad of, I can live the rest of my life in pain from what happened, or I can find the lighter side of it and find the comedy in it, which took a while to find, but now it's funny. Now people hear it and laugh, but when they hear it and laugh, I have to ask myself, does it still hurt to tell it? Because if it hurts to tell it, it doesn't matter if it makes people laugh. You have to heal before you can use. I mean, I can use it as a vehicle of positivity, but does it drain me? And that's the thing that a lot of people don't see in the entertainment world is sometimes people, Taylor Swift goes out there, sings all these songs that people love. But does she go back into her dressing room and cry? Does she go back into her dressing room and feel exhausted because every night she has to tell people about her 7 ex-boyfriends?
Well, you know what? I'm sure they do. You're right. Comedians, I look at Kevin Hart. I'm a Philly guy. I'm born and raised in Philadelphia. Kevin's from Philly. Kevin's whole first couple of years, his whole comedic stand was talking about his family, talking about the craziness in
Yeah.
his family with his uncles and his friends and everything. And I've seen several interviews from him where he talked about, he was in a dark place at time, but it was getting those feelings off his chest in a comedic way that allowed him to heal from a lot of the things that he faced in his life. Will Smith said the same thing, things that he's gone through. And you mentioned Taylor Swift. I can just, my aunt sang Stevie Wonder for, gosh, when I was 5. My aunt sang background for Stevie Wonder for about 8 or 9 years. A real funny story there, Dan. I remember my 5th birthday. I turned 5 years old. My aunt Stevie Wonder was singing at the old Spectrum in Philadelphia, where the Sixers and the Flyers used to play. And just a funny thing for me, for my 5th birthday, Stevie Wonder gave me a purebred female German Shepherd puppy. That's a day I'll never forget. But I bring that up to talk about my aunt. My aunt talked about the dark days that she had experienced traveling on the road. People singing and doing stuff on the road, and you fight those demons. But the way they fight through those demons is by doing what they do, which is by get on stage and singing, by taking the hurt that's inside them and make people laugh and laughter at their hurt. But at the same time,
Yeah.
you're internalizing that's hurt for you, but your way of letting it go is by sharing it with the world and making fun of yourself. And one thing I believe in, and it's a saying I saying, is sometimes you got to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And by doing that, and what I mean by that is you have to be comfortable sharing your life, no matter how hurtful, no matter how traumatic, whatever it needs to be. You have to be comfortable sharing that in order to get through that pain. So I commend you for keep pushing through, keep doing what you're doing. Don't let it stop you. But like you said, if you can use your hurt in a comedic way to heal you, to let that feeling get off your chest, by all means do it. But don't beat yourself up when you do it.
Yeah. And that's great advice. I got to give a shout out here, and this is it's totally off topic from where we are right now, and I love where we are right now, but I promised I would do this, and I'm a man of my word. So I want to give a shout out this morning to Kyle from Oneida, New York, because Kyle, and I was in Nutrition Wave Cicero, and I don't know if you saw it, Kevin, but I have my own drink now. So it's a healthy tea, which I love that. It tastes like it tastes like there's all types of sugar in it, but it's got good stuff for you. It's Herbalife. It has, if you can get different levels of caffeine, but it has vitamins in there. It has aloe. You can add caffeine if you want to have more focus with certain things. And then there's one in there to help you with digestion and help you with your metabolism. So it tastes great. It also helps your body. And I love the fact that I can say that Nutrition Wave Cicero and North Star Nutrition are now a home for Wake Up Call. And the drink is called the Mic Drop, which I got to name it. And I got to choose the flavors: watermelon, strawberry, blueberry, blackberry, and pomegranate. And I want to get it every single day. So I went and got it yesterday, and I met Cassidy and Gina, and I want to give a shout out to both of them. Well, Kyle, in my conversation with Gina, she mentioned Kyle because she saw that I was head to toe Jaguars. I had my teal watch on, my Jaguars hat, my Jaguars sweatshirt. Underneath my sweatshirt, I had other Jaguar stuff on, and I even had my Jaguars sneakers on, thank you, Nike, and my Jaguars bracelet. So I was teal everywhere. And she goes, "How did you become a Jaguars fan?" I said, "I've been a Jaguars fan my whole life. Since 1995, made that decision. From the beginning, I didn't want a bandwagon team, and so I started that love." And she said, my boyfriend Kyle is a big-time Jacksonville Jaguars fan. And I said, "Well, you tell Kyle to listen Monday morning on November 13th, 2023. And I'm going to shout out Kyle for living in upstate New York in the great, great home of Oneida and proudly being a Jaguars fan, wearing his Jaguars stuff. I heard that he went out recently to an establishment where there was another Jaguars fan who said, "I got to take a picture with you," because and it's growing in central New York. The Jaguar fans are growing. It was just me, it felt like. Then there was 13 of us. Now I don't know what it is in CNY currently, but I want to shout out Kyle and all my Jaguars fans out in central and upstate New York for supporting your team, loving your team no matter what anybody says, and for rocking that teal the way that you do. So Kyle from Oneida and all my Jags fans, what's up? That's what I have to say. And I know you're an Eagle fan, but we're on opposite sides.
Hey, Kyle, congratulations, Kyle, on cheering for your Jaguars. Your Jaguars didn't show up yesterday, Kyle. I don't know what y'all did. Y'all didn't show up yesterday. But Dan, I would have to think Donovan Darius has to do something with you becoming a Jacksonville Jaguar fan.
I mean, Donovan Darius. Okay, so that team: Aaron Beasley, Donovan Darius, Marcus Stroud. Who else was out there for me? Tony Baselli. Fred Taylor's my favorite running back of all time. So yeah, Donovan Darius to me, number 20. I loved watching him. Loved that he was from Syracuse as a DB on the team, and now Andre Sisco, a DB from Syracuse on the team. So bookends for me doesn't hurt. I do want to make a mention here of what you just said. I was at Barnes and Noble yesterday, and I normally see like this world to me, and I'm not going to change. I'm not going to stop being a good person. This world to me has gotten way too comfortable being rude and being like really negative, and that comes from the demonic stuff that's coming into our culture and trying to pull God out of it, which is wrong in my opinion. So I'm at Barnes & Noble yesterday, and I'm walking around, and this guy who's probably a little bit older than my dad, let's say he's late 60s, early 70s, he sees my Jaguars stuff on, and pardon my language, folks, because I'm going to tell you what he said. He goes, your team got their ass beat today. And I looked at him, and I went, yeah, thanks for the reminder. And I walked away. And I thought about it, and I was like, man, I don't usually hit when somebody hits. I'm usually like, okay, that guy's an idiot, and I walk away. But something inside of me was like, I'm so done with people being jerks. And your team got your ass beat yesterday. And he kept talking while he was walking. I walked the other way. I was like, I'm not having this conversation with this guy. But I know you just said, like, your Jaguars, whatever, and you joke around. But here's my question to you. When you're in a Barnes & Noble or you're in a restaurant, whatever, and somebody comes up and says something in a way it's just kind of like, hey, you got your ass beat. Hey, you guys suck. I normally go to defend my team. Yesterday, I was like, hey, thanks, you jerk. Like, that was my reaction, is like, hey, thanks for the reminder. Goodbye. I mean, how do you respond to stuff like that? Is it okay that I said, yeah, thanks for the reminder? I didn't swear, but, I feel like we're in a society where some people joke like yourself, but there's other times where, and you and I have also built a relationship, but then there's other people where I just feel like this world is so comfortable going, you walk out, you feel good, you got an outfit on, and somebody looks at you and goes, you look really fat for that outfit. Well, see you later. You know what I mean? What is America doing? Because we become a society of wimps. At the same time, we want to yell at everybody, but we don't want anybody to tell us we're doing anything wrong. And I find that crazy.
Well, we started out this year 4-0, right?
Yeah.
And we're now what? 5-5. 5-5.
Yep.
Okay. So I usually wear a hat all the time. I wear my Syracuse hat. I wear my Eagles hat. I've been catching flack. This is a family show. I've been catching flack all year long after we start out 4-0 and then we fall apart. So we go to the cigar lounge that I go to, guys that I hang out with, and the people I don't know, they may come up and say something smart and sarcastic. I joke about it and laugh, or they'll they'll spark a conversation, and I'm pretty quick to come back with some wit sometimes back to people, and it sparks up a conversation, and then they're like, oh, well, what's your connection? Then I rattle off 86 through 91 what the connection was for being Syracuse University and the dominance that we had then, and they shut up. So I don't have a problem going back at someone if they come back at me, especially in a joking way. We've had a couple of times where some Cowboys fans might try to come at us and say something a little off the cuff. I'm 6'2", 275. My best friend's 6'6", 4'7", 275. We're not small guys, so we can handle ourselves pretty well. So we love getting into a banter with people because it's a little fun. Dan, don't take it to heart. Just be quick at the wit. He comes back and say something back at him. Don't worry about it. You're right. We are getting a little soft. People get their feelings hurt. Don't let that hurt your feelings. Just let that know that guy noticed you enough that he had to make a comment about your team.
Yeah, and that was I was like normally, like I said, normally, and my quick wit came out senior year of high school. I was sick and tired of people bullying people for being kind, including myself, and I would always say things to myself, like I would say the joke right back, but I wouldn't say it out loud. And somebody said something to me, and it was a really off-putting word that so many guys like to use at my high school, which if you said this word today, you'd probably get expelled. And I had my locker open. I had my face in my locker. I was getting some. And I thought to myself, I was like, you know what? Screw it. No. And I shut my locker and I went right up to him and my wit came out. And my wit's never, it was always there, but I hid it and now it's never left. So it did. It like knee jerked. It just knee jerked back. I was like, dude, thanks. You know what I mean? Thanks for the reminder. But the funny thing is, he's a stranger. Alan Griffin, who is the assistant coach, and one of the assistants at Syracuse for basketball. Yep. I love Alan. Alan and I have a friendship. We've known each other for a long time. Alan hates my Jaguars, but there's no logic to it. Now, he's a Giants fan, but he always rips on my Jaguars. So it's now become a running joke between us. So when I interviewed him recently, and you could go back and listen to it, folks, when I interviewed Alan recently, we had this conversation about Syracuse basketball and all these different things, analyzing stuff. And at the end of the conversation, I said, most importantly, are you ever going to respect my Jaguars? And he leaned into the mic and he went, never. So, like, we have that relationship, but he's a Giants fan. My team is good, and his team sucks this year. So,
absolutely.
I'm sorry, Giants fans, but if a Giants fan comes up to me right now to have a conversation about the Jaguars and the Giants right now, you should excuse yourself from the conversation because I'm going to bury you. So, I mean, that's
all you could. Yep. Just say to them three numbers. Say 645. Do you know what that 645 stands for?
Go ahead.
That's how many yards the Giants defense gave up to the Cowboys yesterday. 645 yards.
Well, and I look at it like this. In the games that the Giants have played the Cowboys this season, the two games that they play each other in division, where this division is supposed to be heated, they're supposed to know you better than everybody else knows you, the Dallas Cowboys have put on a clinic against the Giants. And it's funny because the Dallas Cowboys played so well against the Giants, and there was a stat that went up about Dak Prescott has more 400-plus yard games than any other Dallas quarterback ever, and he now has 10, and everybody else, you know, you look at it in any iteration, nobody has reached the 10 that he has, and they're like, well, he did it against the Giants. It's like, no, he had good games against the Giants, but he's done it in general in his career. You do it against anybody, it's good. They've outscored the Giants this season in 2 games, 89-17. So, you know what I mean? It's like, I understand that, you know, some people pick something, like my man Griff. He picked that he hates my Jaguars, and he's going to keep hating them whether they win a Super Bowl or whatever. He would still say they're trash because we joke back and forth. But outside of joking, to the logic of people, if you're a Giants fan ripping on the Jaguars, the Eagles, the Niners, heck, the friggin' Browns right now, you really don't have a leg to stand on, because the New York Giants, their claim to fame is that they're not the Bears, they're not the Patriots, and they're not the Panthers. But besides those teams, the New York Football Giants need an offensive line, a quarterback, everything on defense. They can't stop anybody. And if I was Saquon Barkley, and I thought he was going to do this past season, I would have been like, yo, you had my rookie contract. That's all well and good. Trade my butt right now, because.
But he didn't want to. Dan, I don't know if you heard what he said. He said he went there to build something. He doesn't want to leave there. I mean, that's what was the whole thing for the trade deadline. He said he's committed to them being there, and
well, then they need to be committed to him.
Well, true. So let's go back to that game yesterday. You and I were texting yesterday as that game went on, and we brought a little bit of Syracuse humor into it. So Tommy DeVito, now the starting quarterback for the New York Giants. What are your thoughts on that?
This is my thing about Tommy DeVito. I have had the opportunity to get to know him and get to know his family. And I jokingly said to his father years ago when they were out at one of my live shows in downtown Syracuse, when I met his dad, and his dad not only, and I'm Italian and Hispanic, and his dad is, New Jersey Italian. He's got the pigtail in the back. I went to school with somebody who had that. He put his arm around me and he smiled to take a picture. And I looked at him and I said, you and I will never be on the opposite sides. I was like, you and I will never, we're not going to quarrel, my friend. But no, Tommy DeVito Sr. and his mom, Lexi, wonderful people. Now, Tommy, this is how I look at this. This is a strange story, but I'm going to bring it all to where we are today. Dino Babers doesn't have Eric Dungy. He can't claim the rights to Eric Dungy. That was Tim Lester. And Tim Lester is the one that pushed Schaefer. He said, keep a quarterback scholarship open. You have to give this guy a scholarship. Tim Lester, every time it was legally okay to go, he went out to Oregon and visited Eric Dungy. So he's responsible for bringing Eric Dungy to Syracuse. And then if people forget this, Dino said in his first season with Eric Dungy, he said Dungy runs, but he's going to learn to, I'm paraphrasing, but he said he's going to learn to run less. We're not going to be doing that here. He's going to have to basically fall in line. The next season in the press conference, he went, well, I can't stop Eric from running. Eric's got to be Eric. And I was like, he just backpedaled all the way because he understood. This is not your guy. You don't know his talents. You don't know his skill set. You tried to make him something that he's not, and you failed at it because you can't make a square peg fit into a round hole.
Yep.
So he benefits from Eric Dungy, his best season, 10-3. Since then, they've been on the decline, and they weren't going anywhere when he came in, and they haven't gone anywhere as Dungy's been out. And they didn't go anywhere when Dino came in. Dungy finally letting him be who he is, and a bunch of guys growing, got to 10-3, and they haven't gone anywhere since he finished up. Eric Dungy, and I argue that he's on the Mount Rushmore of Syracuse quarterbacks. So, for what he meant to the team, because I don't even know if they would have won 2 to 4 games without him. So Dungy leaves, Tommy DeVito comes in, he brings in DeVito. So this is a Dino Babers choice. And with this being Dino Babers' choice, he decides Tommy DeVito is my golden boy. That is my guy. And he brings in Tommy DeVito, and he puts him in an offense that Eric Dungy was in, and it's not who Tommy DeVito is. And he tried to make and I feel like he tried to make Tommy who Tommy is not. Now, keep in mind, Dino Babers has never kept his staff together in 100%. He has not kept a complete staff together from season to season in his 8 seasons at Syracuse. He has not had a carbon copy of one season to the next season. And when coaches are running away, that tells me something. So Tommy DeVito gets blamed for this, that, and the third, but Tommy DeVito is dealing with different coaches, different scheming, different mindsets. Orange is the new fast. Now we're going to slow down. Now we're going to do this. Now we're going to do that. So I feel like that affects Tommy. Tommy was a stand in the pocket, use his arm. His arm strength, fantastic. But if you watch Tommy in high school and you watch what he did, Tommy trusted in his arm. He would hike the ball looking down. He wouldn't survey the field. He already knew what receiver he was throwing to, and he knew his arm could get the ball there, so he would throw it, and he got away with that in high school. Well, at Syracuse, because he did not survey the field, he didn't have the time from the offensive line at times, and other times it was his fault. Sometimes he hiked the ball, and there were guys in his face, and he couldn't do anything because the offensive line struggled. There were other times where he would hike that ball, and he would look at his receiver, and that was it. Or he wouldn't even look. He would just go, I know that guy's there. I'm going to throw the ball. He threw one ball into the stands. So I look at Tommy and say, you have the arm strength. You're a pocket passer. But you have to survey the field. You have to be able to learn on the fly. You have to, if you want to be successful, you're going to have to be able to slow the game down, read the defense, and make those plays. Now, I like Tommy DeVito. Like I said, I appreciate him. I appreciate his family. I don't appreciate fans that were booing and throwing things at his mother in the dome. You got Syracuse fans throwing things at the mother of one of the Syracuse players. Those people should never be allowed back in the dome for the rest of their life. Neither should their children or grandchildren if they decide to act that way. But if their children and grandchildren decide to break the chain and not act like complete morons, then they can come back to the dome. But if you're throwing something at anybody, especially the mother of a player or father of a player, brother, sister, girlfriend, boyfriend of a player, then I think you should get escorted out of the Dome or any establishment and never be allowed back in for your own stupidity. With that being
Agreed.
said, he goes to Illinois. They give him an offensive line, and he can throw from the pocket. And they have a fantastic season. So what Dino couldn't give him, which was a line to protect him and the ability for him to be himself and utilize his arm strength, yes, he had to get better in surveying the field. There's things that Tommy needed to improve on, but giving him an offensive line in a league in the Big Ten that dedicates itself to building from the inside out and having just those big burly guys, offensive and defensively, on the line. Now I said that as soon as he went to Illinois, I said now he's got a line. And we saw him play better, and yes, he made mistakes, and yes, he had moments, but he played better. Then he goes to the NFL. He's not drafted. He works out with the Dolphins, the Giants, his hometown team, and working out with the Giants, they see something in him to keep him. And I give him credit for that, because now they're looking at him mechanically, decision-making, all of that stuff they're running him through. They're trying to see what he can do. So maybe his reads got better. Maybe his timing got better, whatever that may be. And they put him on the team. Now he's the starting quarterback. Now, I look at him the same way I look at what Dino's doing with his quarterbacks right now. He doesn't believe anybody can throw because Garrett Schrader, I don't care what anybody says, it seems like his shoulder is injured or his arm itself is injured. So he can't throw. But he's not trusting Villari to throw. And because Villari led the team with three completions on 5 attempts for 16 yards, led Syracuse on Saturday. I want people to understand that.
Yep.
And he's not trusting Carlos Del Rio Wilson, and he has no trust for his third-string quarterback that he brought in as a transfer because we haven't even seen him. So with that being said, on Dino's side, he's committing to running the ball and doing all these crazy schemes, and I think that that's what Daboll is doing as well with Tommy. I don't think he trusts him to throw the ball. And in the NFL, you can't get away with that.
Well, my thing is, I'm glad to see Tommy getting his opportunity. I don't know the kid, but I heard all the stories, and you can listen, and you've heard the people complaining about him and the treatment of his family. I think that's really disgraceful. But let's turn to Syracuse. That offense on Saturday, I'm texting Tennell, Mike Owens, a bunch of guys like, what is this? What is this offense that we're doing? Okay, we brought back the Wildcat right now, and I had the same feeling you had is that he evidently doesn't trust his quarterback, or either Garrett's hurt. So, okay, let's go with Garrett's hurt. But my whole complaint for the 8-9 years that he's been here is that when he came from Bowling Green, he was this quarterback whisperer. He was this guy that was supposed to be able to train, develop, get the best he could out of quarterbacks. And I've never seen that. To your point, Eric Dungy wasn't his guy. He inherited Eric. Eric did his thing. But since then, I have not seen a quarterback grow and mature in our offense to where we can put out a really good offensive team every year. Garrett transferred from Mississippi State, I believe it was. Okay, so he was a wide receiver. He was an option quarterback. He was a running quarterback. We had some success the first couple of years. We bring in the other kid to transfer from Florida. I've heard nothing but good things about him from coming from folks out from Florida, but he gets up here and he really can't do anything. I don't think he's reading the defense. I think his number one thought is get the ball, cover, run. He just wants to run. So my gripe is, or my concern is, as we go on to year 10 or week 11, whatever it is, when is he going to get a quarterback in here and truly develop a quarterback? Because I haven't seen it. And I stated again, when he came here, we were told, because he came from the Baylor offense and did all that stuff, that he was a quarterback guru. What happened?
Well, I think the thing is, and people have said this before, is if you look at Dino's track record, he doesn't spend a lot of time in places. He spends a couple of years there, a couple of years there. I mean, so the question has been, does he come in and help somebody who's already started training, who's already kind of along their line, along their progression, and does he come in and help that? Or is he the guy that can actually do it? Because he's had plenty of time at Syracuse, and it's not happening. Now, Lenora Sellers from South Carolina was supposed to be coming into Syracuse, and Lenore's told me
Right.
that I said, "What made you commit to Syracuse?" He said, "Honestly, Dan, I got a phone call from Donovan McNabb, and I committed after that." And I never felt 100% on Lenora Sellers because I didn't think he wanted to come on to a team where he wasn't going to play right away. And seeing Syracuse struggle, plus knowing that Garrett Schrader was going to be there, I didn't think Lenora Sellers was going to come in. And there was another guy at Syracuse at the time where I was sitting here going, okay, I think Lenoris is looking at the situation going, I'm not going to play right away. They're not going to give me a shot. There's no opening for me to immediately be their quarterback. And I talked to him, and I don't know. I had this, I trust my gut, and I had this feeling in my gut that it just didn't look like it was making sense for him. The team's not winning. It didn't look like he had that pathway to become the starting quarterback right away. Not that he wasn't going to go in and compete. I just didn't think Dino was going to give it to him. And then I talked to him on the phone. And people can go back and listen to that interview. It's on all of our podcasting platforms, and you can go to wakeupcalldt.podbean.com, probably the easiest, and type in Lenora Sellers, or just type in Sellers, and it'll bring you to the interview. When I spoke with him about Syracuse, I did not edit that interview. I let interviews be what they are. He paused in all the wrong places for a Syracuse fan. And I got off the phone going, crap. I thought he wasn't coming. Now I know he's not. And eventually he decided not to come to Syracuse. So I look at Lenora Sellers and I say, could he have been that future? But you're right. I mean, who is Dino bringing in that is that guy? And when over the years you keep changing this offense and you keep changing, but again, you're changing quarterback coaches too. You know, how many quarterback coaches did Eric Dungy have to go through? So when you're in a situation like this, it's so unfortunate that the players are suffering, and that's what I've been saying throughout this season is I feel bad that because Syracuse University as a whole doesn't seem to have any direction with the football program, and Dino doesn't seem to have any direction with the football program, the student athletes, 100 guys, in my opinion, are suffering. And in a world where people are leaving good to great teams in the transfer portal, I don't think they would hesitate to leave a poor to average team. And I honestly think Syracuse could have a record amount of people in the portal this year. They could see 30 guys jump into the portal. And do I want to see that happen for my hometown? No. But my question to Kent Siverud, John Wildhack, and Dino Babers is, where are we going? And how is it any different from where we've been?
Yeah. Now, I say all that, and I say this: I commend the kids. They played a hard game on Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they fought. They came out. They played. Wasn't a whole lot of fans up there, you know, to watch the game in that big stadium, but they came out and played. So I don't see any quitting the team.
No.
But going back to what you said, you know, look at the transfer portal. I mean, why did Deuce leave? You know, I'm not even sure how he's doing at LSU right now. But this is a kid that came in, played his first 2 years, had some pretty good success his first 2 years, getting ready to become an All-American, even playing cornerback at Syracuse.
Yeah.
He leaves and go to LSU. So that, for me, was a red flag right away. You know, we got Bellamy in. He came out the portal from Notre Dame. So, you know, we've had a couple of players come in.
Yeah.
But I just haven't seen the growth and maturity that I would have liked to have seen, and that, you know, over the past 7 or 8 years there, that you expect to see a team grow. And to your point is, why is this coaching staff changing so much? You know, what's going on there? Yeah. You know, what's the real vibe as to why you can't get any continuity there year in and year out? Yes, every teams make changes, but usually when you make changes, it's to better yourself. What I see is coaches just leaving. And now we got to fill a gap, fill a void, bringing in someone else. So it's concerning because, you know, you don't see the growth. You don't see the maturity. I'm not beating up on the kids. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm just saying is I see these kids go out day in and day out, week in and week out, and they fight and play. And even when they're struggling against the Clemsons of the world, they were still fighting and still trying to get a win. I just don't know if the coaching staff is truly doing them the true service that they're supposed to be doing to put them in a real competitive, exciting, able to win environment. And that's what concerns me.
Yeah, and again, and I talk about this all the time. I mean, these student athletes, to me, people get on them so much, but I've been around this program. I've been around this program my whole life, and I've covered this program for more than a decade, talking with these student athletes, talking with these coaches when we were allowed to. We're not allowed to talk to anybody other than Dino anymore, which I find to be idiotic and absolutely strange. And that's the other part of it, right? I mean, how do these coaches feel at home when you work under Dino and you're not allowed to have a voice, and you're not allowed to speak, and you're not allowed to talk to the media, you're not allowed to agree or disagree with things, and you could walk into Wegmans here in Central New York, and nobody knows that you're an assistant on the team because nobody's heard your voice, and they don't know your face because you're never around. You're never on the news. You're never in the media because you're not allowed to be. If I'm a coach, I would say, why can't I go talk about my offense? Why can't I go talk about my defense? If there's an issue with the running backs in the backfield, why can't the running backs coach come out and talk about it? I remember sitting on a bench with Tyrone Wheatley, and he sat there and he leaned back on the bench, put his arm around me, and we just sat and we had a conversation like old friends. DeAndre Smith and I are friends to this day because Scott Schaefer had an open door policy. Tim Lester and I are friends to this day. God bless him in heaven. My friend Fred Reed, who passed away, will be friends forever. And I love Fred. Bobby Acosta and I talk. Joe Adam and I are extremely close, and I value his faith and belief in God more than most. I was spoiled to sit with those men, but I don't know any of these men. We're not allowed to know any of these men. Now, Syracuse University says that no one's allowed to speak to assistant coaches, and I can tell you that that's BS because they allow their favorite media outlets to do it, but they don't allow other people to do it. And I remember when Tony White got hired, he agreed to do an interview with me, and I was told by Syracuse that he wasn't allowed to speak to me because I should know the policy that assistant coaches under Dino Babers don't talk to anybody. And that was right after the Post-Standard did an interview with him. And I wrote back to Syracuse saying, well, the Post-Standard did it, so I thought I could, and I got no response. So call a spade a spade. But Dino and I have a good relationship, and we've talked a lot off the air. And I appreciate that, and I value that. At the same time of valuing that, I know Syracuse better than he does. I know Syracuse football history better than he does, arguably. And I jokingly have said this before, but it's true. If I became the head coach, argument's sake, if I became the head coach of Syracuse, I wouldn't have to be good. I can analyze. Look at the coach in Miami, right? That guy's like, he looks like he's a guy from Best Buy who's going to fix my computer, but he's really good at the analytics of it all. Now, that's not me. That is not me. I can analyze and do all that stuff, but I'm not like a human computer.
Well, he's also an alum, right? Cristobal, you talking about?
No, I'm talking about the Miami Dolphins head coach.
The
Miami Dolphins head coach. But if I was the head coach of the team, I look at it like this. I understand football. I'm learning every day. I don't know it like a coach knows it, but how many alum do I know? How many alum have you seen here on the show? If I became the head coach of Syracuse University right now, I would call up 40 guys that I know, and I would put my staff together from Syracuse football players. And I know people that would say yes to me right now. So, to me, I wouldn't have to do anything other than allow my assistants to do their job, and then I oversee that job that they do. I got to know when to call timeouts. I got to know who my best are in the depth chart. I got to be able to veto things, and I got to be able to listen and respond. But at the end of the day, if I was the head coach of Syracuse, I would bring back the alumni, and I would let the alumni drag us out of the ditch. because I know that they can better than anybody else. That good relationship with Dino is there, and I appreciate that. But if Dino sat down with me right now and said, Dan, I want to talk about what's going wrong, I would say, Dino, you're 8 years in and you don't know this community. You're 8 years in and people don't feel connected to you. You're 8 years in and you have like a Nazi policy on your assistant coaches. Let them speak. You're 8 years in and your student athletes are running every chance they get. Your coaches are running every chance they get. You're not recruiting locally, and when you are recruiting locally, you're not making a good enough case. So if you want to know how you fix this, stop detaching from the alumni, get into the community, take your coaches out of Alcatraz and let them speak, and recruit these kids. Go to their games. Don't say you're going to their games. Physically go to their games and do something. The problem with Syracuse today is that the university has completely detached itself from the city and from the community, and they're that castle on the hill, but they forgot that that castle on the hill means nothing if the peasants, as they treat us, don't go up to the hill and actually go into the castle and buy its stuff. And that's the grand issue, is if Dino's not connecting to the community and the university on a grand scale is not connecting to the community, why are we surprised that everything is failing?
Yeah, I mean, you and I had this conversation from the very first time we talked. One of the biggest disconnects is that he alienated the alumni. You've got quite a few guys that won't go back up there, won't have anything to do with it because he just completely alienated everybody. That goes from recruiting family members of alumni players to, allowing alumni to come to practice, come to the game, come in the locker room. I mean, hell, when I was there was nothing like seeing Donnie come back or Roger Remo come back, Teddy Gregory come back, Paul Fraze came back, Rob Burnett came back. I mean, it was not Daryl Johnson. It was nothing like seeing those guys who were, when me as a freshman, who were juniors and seniors graduate and went on. It was nothing more exciting seeing those guys come back in there. He never allowed that. It gradually started to happen over the last couple of years. It's still not to the level to where it should be. So I think that was probably one of his biggest downfalls, is that he just alienated all the alumni. But we still go to the bowl games. We still go. The big crew went up to New York City, this past weekend to do that. We still come out and support where we can, when we want to. But there's just such a big disconnect. I don't know how you fix it. But it's really kind of disappointing. 4-0, I expected us to be. We were competitive in a lot of the losses. I just expected us to be a lot better. I expected us to turn that curve around. We've been 4-0 with the last 2-3 years in a row, and then we just fall apart. And then it's a rush to the races to get that 6th win to become bowl eligible. Which is really good for the kids because they get to go to a bowl game. Ultimately, you want to have a winning, successful season. You want to win the championship. But for your seniors, it's good for your seniors to get to go to a bowl game. That's a huge thing for them. So they're fighting to do that. They got 2 games left with Wake and
Georgia Tech.
It's Wake and Georgia Tech. 2 games that we should win. This creative offense that we've got running right now, I'm not sure what's going to happen there once you pick pop 9 men in the box because they know you're going to run. I got to see a clever way to beat it. But, I mean, Dan, I bleed orange. I love Syracuse University. I love my teammates. As you know, I got a text thread with a bunch of guys. We text each other every day. I share the same motivations with them that I share with you every day. We're still all proud to be Syracuse fans. I just think our heart is kind of not broken. We're just a little disappointed in the way things have gone, the way the current staff has kind of done things. We would have loved to have, more interaction with players to do certain things, but it is what it is. We're still going to support. We're still going to be there. Yep. Do I think a change need to be made? Probably so. I think we probably need to do something in a different direction. But that's not my call. That's the chancellor's call. That's the AD's call. But it is what it is. But I got to hit that rushing hour. I got to go do my real job now. But it's been as always, man. It's a pleasure talking to you. Let's keep in touch. The daily text messages will come. Keep your head up. Don't let anyone put you down. Keep pushing forward. And the last thing I would say to you, Dan, is you got to be comfortable being uncomfortable, and I think you're doing a great job of doing that.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate that truly. And I love this city, and I love this team, just like you do. So we all want to see them succeed and do well. With that being said, to bring it full circle, shout out to my guy Dan Villari, who has a huge faith in God. We spoke going into the season, and he was the star of the show against Pittsburgh at Yankee Stadium. So really happy to be able to connect with him, and love the fact that a man who has such a strong faith in God is successful and doing that on a stage where people can see it and hear it, because I think we need more people to come out and thank God in these precious moments in life, in the good ones and in the tough ones as well. So, Kevin, thank you for doing that. Thank you for living the life the way you do. I love those messages. I appreciate our relationship, and I look forward to talking with you soon.
You got it. Take care.
Take care. That coming from Kevin Greene here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Once again, Syracuse Orange Football alum here on the broadcast. And folks, this is hard. It's a very hard thing to deal with right now, and I'm saying the same thing that I was saying a long time ago. I mean, I'm having the same conversation, and to me that's a problem in and of itself, is that we're sitting here 8 years into Dino being here, and Syracuse still has partiality treatment to the media, to certain people that they like. There's still a cutoff from the rest of the media to talking to assistant coaches. There's a cutoff from the school to the community. The student athletes are dealing with all of these coaching changes every single year. Somebody's moving on, and that's not fair to them. There's players that have been at Syracuse that went through different schemes and different defenses and different stuff. Look at Zaire Franklin. Zaire Franklin is not a 7th-round draft pick. Okay? The Colts got a steal because they did their homework. That man was a 3rd-round draft pick, in my opinion. But he played 2 years in Brian Ward's defense, which is not defense. It was just it was like a giant outstretched hand saying, catch this touchdown, because we're not going to stop it. So Zaire Franklin had to play 2 years in Brian Ward's read and react defense after playing his first 2 years at Syracuse under Scott Schaefer's punch you in the mouth attack defense mentality. And so under Schaefer, he had the opportunity to show himself, where I think the last 2 years under Brian Ward, he didn't. And he drops down the board, which is something that I was very concerned would happen. But they pick him up in the 7th round, and Colts fans are probably going, who the hell is this guy? Why did we draft this guy? He's not going to make the team. He's a 7th rounder. I'm not even going to learn his name. And then they learned his name. And then he became a starter. And then he became a captain on the team, because Zaire Franklin's really good. But he was punished. Not because it's his fault. He was punished by being in that defense. And Greg, you brought up a great point. The last thing you said, I'm going to bring it up in a second. So when I look at Syracuse right now, I say, if the university has unfair media practices and policies where they tell us all to abide by rules, but only some of us have to abide by those rules, and you detach yourself from the community, and on top of detaching yourself from the community, you now also are putting these student athletes in a position where they don't have the same coaches year to year when you're looking at this. And mediocrity has been the name of the game, right? All Dino has to do is try to get to it. I mean, Dino doesn't even have to get to a bowl game. But if Dino gets to a bowl game, it's good enough. We talk about it all the time, but folks, Paul Pasqualoni was fired for having 2 6-6 seasons. Paul Pasqualoni, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, had 1 losing season at Syracuse. But he went 6-6 back-to-back years, and they fired him. If Dino Babers goes 6-6 this season, they'll argue to keep him. So, what are we doing? Is the question that I ask you. What is Syracuse doing? If mediocrity was not the name of the game, then why is it the name of the game right now? It's the same thing over and over again, hoping that it changes. I'm not wishing for Dino's firing. Like I said, I have a good relationship with Dino. I'm looking at this like if Dino's 8 years in and the university has unfair media practices, which they've had forever, it feels, at least forever in my world, if there's the unfair media practices, the detachment from the community, the disrespect toward the community, and on top of all of that, you have a coach who does not allow the alumni in, and now that maybe he's finally starting to allow the alumni in, it could be too little too late, and even when he allows the alumni in, it doesn't feel as good as it should feel, and I think there's still a lot of missed opportunities that I've seen over the past few years, and you're changing your coaching staffs year in, year out. What are we doing? You know, you can't keep selling this product to Syracuse student athletes, and you can't keep selling this product to fans. Hey guys, we know you'll come out no matter how much we don't change anything because you have to, because Lemoyne doesn't have football and we don't have an NFL team. So you got 2 D1 teams in the city, but Lemoyne doesn't have a football program, so if you want to watch football, you got to come here. I would rather go watch a high school football game than watch Syracuse continue to not change for the better. I love these student athletes. I love them. They know that. I have loved every single one of them that's come through. And I try to love these coaches, but gosh darn it, we don't get to know them. So the few that I do know, they know I care about them. They know I love them. I love Coach Hicks more than most. I think Coach Hicks, and when I say more than most, a lot of us love him. I'm saying I love him at all the coaches I think about that I know. I love Coach Hicks in a special way because Coach Hicks has always been there for me. And showing up is 90% of the battle. So, you know, Hicks has always been there for me. He's always had my back, and I appreciate that, and I respect that. And I know he's fighting his tail off to get things done. And he's fighting up against a lot of things that were done wrong, and he's trying to do them right after all these years they were done wrong, so it takes time. It takes time. But everybody I talk to loves Coach Hicks, and my prayers to Coach Hicks and his family right now because they're going through a hard time. I look at this giant pile of university issues, coaches leaving, student-athletes leaving, and more of the same every single year, and I ask myself, what are we doing? What are we doing? Because under the model that Syracuse has right now and under the system that we have seen, I don't even want to call it a system, under what we have seen, if you what do they say? If you don't pay attention to history, you're doomed to repeat it. If we look at the history of Syracuse under Dino Babers, it is more likely to have a 4 to 6 win season than anything else. It is more likely to have a coach leave than not leave, and it is more likely for Syracuse to lose players every year. And you would say, well, everybody does in the transfer portal, but I would say Syracuse is losing student athletes because they want to win. They're losing student athletes because they want to play competition and have a fighting chance. They want a better shot in the NFL. And then you would say, well, Dan, recent guys have gone to the NFL like Andre Cisco. I think if Andre Cisco was at Ohio State, he would have been a top 8 pick. I'm very high on Andre Cisco. I don't think he was a third-round pick. I think that was a steal. Granted, he got injured too, but I think even being at Syracuse, he was not going to be a first-round pick. He just wasn't going to be. And it's not fair, but that could be why a Deuce Chestnut leaves. You know, I think I can make the NFL, but if I am at Syracuse and I'm picked 2 rounds later, then, you know, that's money for me. He could be thinking about it in that respect. You know, there's wide receivers that weren't getting the ball thrown to them. They got a running quarterback, so they left because they can't showcase their talents if nobody throws them the ball. And I can understand that, right? If you look at this game and say Syracuse won 28-13, there was only a few passes completed. So yeah, they won 28-13, but why don't you ask Damian Alfred how he feels? Why running routes for no reason? Why don't you ask Damian Alfred how he feels? Why don't you ask, you know, and they say, well, it's because Aronde Gadsden isn't there right now. Nah, you know, there are teams that keyed in on Arande later last season, and Syracuse struggled to get the job done because they had people keying in on them. When I look at the Orange, I would say to myself, what is Trevor Pena, Kendall Long, Isaiah Jones, Amari Hatcher, Daryl Gill Jr., Donovan Brown, Damian Alford, DeMarcus Adams, what do they think about the fact that this team isn't throwing the ball? Why do you think that there's wide receivers that commit and decommit to Syracuse? So, to me, you have to assess the problems that you have. I like Garrett Schrader, and I truly believe that he is injured right now. I believe his shoulder is injured right now. That is my opinion. That is what I believe. I'm not saying Garrett called me and told me. That is my opinion. I commend him for going out there and continuing to play because he's a dog. And I respect the heck out of Garrett Schrader. I respect the bleep out of Garrett Schrader. I really do. And I probably go to bat for him and with him more than probably anybody in the media in Syracuse. They'd probably let me be on an island by myself with Garrett Schrader. And that's fine. Because Garrett, to me, without him, I don't think Syracuse wins much anything. Does he make mistakes? Yeah, everybody in life does. Check yourself. But in an offense that is not prone to throw the ball, and especially now with Garrett being injured and seemingly no trust in the arm of Carlos Del Rio Wilson, no trust in Braden Davis, who they brought in as a transfer at all, this is going to be a team that's going to run the ball. Now, Greg said that scheming worked against Pitt, but it was the 2023 version of Pitt, and I agree. Now, if Pat Narduzzi gets fired or anybody talks about him getting fired, I think that person should go sit in the corner. Because Pat Narduzzi won an ACC championship with Pitt, which some people thought was never going to happen in the history of anything. Okay? That Pitt, Syracuse would never win an ACC championship. Ever. And if ever. And Pat Narduzzi did. Okay? Pat Narduzzi went to a New Year's Six Bowl. Pat Narduzzi sending guys to the NFL. Pat Narduzzi is recruiting Syracuse, Central, and Upstate New York better than Syracuse, and they're successful. Servassier Dennis, one of the best players that Pitt's had in recent history. He came from CBA, my alma mater. Guess what Syracuse did? Didn't offer him. Pat Narduzzi came in 2015, brought his team to a bowl game. 2016, went to a bowl game. 8-5, 8-5. Lost those bowl games, but got there. 8-5 records, which means they didn't need the bowl like Syracuse has to get over 500 in the record. 8-5, 8-5, then 5-7, then 7-7, went to a bowl game, lost that bowl game, then 8-5, won in the Quick Lane Bowl, then 6-5 in the COVID year, could have gone to a bowl game, did not, and then 11-3 in 2021, where they won the ACC and lost in the Peach Bowl in a New Year's Six game. Shout out to Chick-fil-A's Peach Bowl because I know the people out there, and Matt Garvey and Gary Stokin and everybody at the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl Inc., I should say, that do the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, Chick-fil-A kickoff game, and so many things in the community and work with the College Football Hall of Fame. They do a tremendous job, and I want to shout out Peach Bowl Inc. for all the work that they do. 2022, last season, they went 9-4, went to the Sun Bowl and won it. So he has been to 6 bowl games. And you could say, Dan, he's been to 6 bowl games, but he's only won 2 of them. And I would say, would you rather Syracuse have gotten to 6 bowl games or gotten to where they are right now under Dino Babers? Would you be happy if you could say in Dino Babers' tenure that his teams were 9-4, 11-3, 8-5? Dino's teams are more consistently 4-8. Pat Narduzzi's teams are more consistently 8-5 or better. Syracuse had one 10-win season, and those were with the recruits that Scott Schaefer and his staff had brought in. A lot of those guys did not come from Dino. Since then, Dino has had 5-7 seasons, 1-10 seasons. Did get to a bowl game last year. But we look at, okay, you always look and say, what has a coach done with the people that they've recruited? So take away that 10-3 season, and you have 5-7, 1-10, 5-7, 7-6, and this season is 5-5. overall, Dino is 41-54 as a head coach at Syracuse. And I'm telling you right now that people are going to consider firing Pat Narduzzi. People are going to consider firing Pat Narduzzi. And I'm telling you that. Because we live in a what have you done for me lately world. And what have you done for me lately, Pat Narduzzi, people forget that he had an 11-win season. People forget that he won an ACC championship. People forget that he went to a New Year's Six Bowl. People forget the guys that he's been sending to the NFL. People forget the fact that when they had divisions, Pitt was out there pushing toward the Coastal Division title more than once. So, and remember, Pitt's made it to more than one ACC championship game. They've won one under Pat Narduzzi, but they've made it to more than one. What would they be without him is the question. And I would say they wouldn't be where they are right now. I can't say, because I don't know who they would have hired, that they couldn't be in a better position, because who knows who they would have hired. But not a bad position to be in. Dino Babers has been to half the amount of bowl games as we've seen Pat Narduzzi get to. Dino Babers came into Syracuse in 2016. Pat Narduzzi came in to Pitt in 2015. So he's had one more season. He's made it to 6 bowl games, multiple ACC championships, won an ACC championship, and played in a New Year's Six Bowl. Dino has made it to 2 bowl games, and he's 1-1. Went to the Camping World Bowl with Schaefer's guys, and then went to the Pinstripe Bowl with his guys. Granted, there was a bunch of guys out and guys that decided not to play, including Sean Tucker, and the team had a very bad game. To be very kind about the score, it was a horrible game. Honestly. The Pinstripe Bowl was a terrible game. This one. The most recent one. Not the first 2 Syracuse played in, but this one in 2022 was. So, you look at it in the same conference with 2 Northeast teams, Pat Narduzzi is leaps and bounds above Dino Babers at this point. Almost the exact same amount of time at each school. Pat Narduzzi at Pitt, Dino Babers at Syracuse. Look at where we are. And I bring up Pitt because Pitt's a rival, right? But it's not really a rival anymore. Now, Syracuse won this game. And again, Greg says it's against the 2023 version of Pitt. And he's right. The 2023 version of Pitt is struggling. And again, I wouldn't even entertain firing Pat Narduzzi. Because I think a coach once in 8 years is allowed to have a tough season. He's had a winning season 6 times in 8 seasons going into this season. 6 times he's had a winning season. The 2 that he didn't, 5-7 and 7-7. This is going to be his first losing season. And the first time in the last 3 years that they don't make a bowl game. Now, if Pat Narduzzi has a record like this for the next 2 years, and you say they got a losing record in 2023, 24, and 25, now you sit here and go, okay, what's the problem? What can we do? Is it time to look elsewhere? But Pat Narduzzi, to me, they have no reason to fire this guy for having 1 losing season. Or, 2 losing seasons. And the other one right there for being a 6-6 season. Because if you look at the juxtaposition, or if you look at the parallel of him and Dino Babers, if he had this record at Syracuse, I mean, Syracuse has accepted 1-10 and 5-7. The university has. With Pat Narduzzi, this would be huge. At a time where Syracuse is going 1-10, you got a coach playing in an ACC championship game? I mean, you look around the same time period and say, look at what Dino was doing, and look at what at the same time area, we were seeing Pat Narduzzi do. You know, in 2020, Syracuse is 1-10. Narduzzi 6-5. The next year, he's 11-3, and Syracuse is 5-7. So, I don't think that there should be any move on Narduzzi. And I'm happy that Syracuse got this victory. The guys needed it. At the same time, it was great to see Villari under center. But will this scheming work against Dave Clawson? Granted, Wake Forest is a shell of themselves, and I don't blame Dave Clawson. I blame the transfer portal. Because Sam Hartman is now out there with Notre Dame doing his thing and having fun, and the guy that was leading Wake Forest and putting them in the top 2, sometimes leading the ACC, or in the top 2 or top 3 in the ACC multiple times over the last couple seasons. Now they're at the bottom of the ACC, and you say, okay, well, what happened? Well, they lost their quarterback. They lost their star guy to the transfer portal. But Dave Clawson is still really smart when it comes to Dino. So I wouldn't count Dave Clawson out when Syracuse has to play Wake Forest at home. And Georgia Tech, for people that are just following the narrative of Georgia Tech sucks, did you look at what they've done this season? They haven't been good in many a season, recent history, but this season, they're in the upper echelon of the ACC. This season, Georgia Tech is in the top 6 in the ACC right now. They have a winning record in the ACC at 4-3. They're 5-5 like Syracuse overall, but 4 of their 5 wins have come in conference. In contrast, 5 of Syracuse's losses have come in conference. So every game that Syracuse has overall that they've lost has come in conference. 1-5 in the conference, 5-5 overall. So every single one of the losses that they've taken has come inside of the ACC. 5 losses to Georgia Tech's 4 wins in the conference. Syracuse has 1 win in the ACC, which just came against Pitt. Georgia Tech is in a different world right now. Overall, it looks the same, but inside of the ACC, they've been more competitive. They defeated North Carolina, who was ranked 17th at the time. They did that at home in Atlanta, 46-42. They defeated Miami on the road, who was also ranked 17th at the time of play, 23-20. So Georgia Tech is no slouch. If you think this is going to be an easy game, you're following the narrative of who Georgia Tech was last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Not right now. Because Georgia Tech is on the hunt now. And I never count out Dave Clawson. So, but again, even if Syracuse does it, 6-6, 7-5. Is that enough in 2023 when it wasn't enough at the beginning of the 21st century? It wasn't enough to take a storied, successful, talented head coach who had a phenomenal coaching tree underneath him. It wasn't good enough for Coach P, but it's good enough for Coach D. That's my question. I'm not saying fire Dino, because I never wish bad on anybody. Even if somebody's an absolute jerk to me, I'm not going to wish bad on them. If anything, I'm going to pray that they stop being mean to people. Dino at 6-6. Paul Pasqualoni at 6-6. Treated totally different. So, what is Syracuse going to do? What is acceptable now? Is mediocrity good enough? And all I'm saying is, the way that Syracuse is going right now, Syracuse fans are going to have to get used to just getting by, barely getting there. This isn't Pitt under Pat Narduzzi. It's not Wake Forest under Dave Clawson. It's not NC State under Dave Doran. It's not North Carolina under the second timing of Mac Brown. It's not Florida State under Mike Norvell. It's not Mike Elko at Duke. Heck, it's not even Jeff Hafley at Boston College. Or Mario Cristobal at Miami. Syracuse has fallen to the bottom of the ACC. And Coach P was fired for having adversity after having numerous seasons of admirable, high-quality work. People would argue Coach P didn't have COVID. He didn't have to deal with that. He didn't have to deal with COVID. He didn't have to deal with NIL. He didn't have to deal with the transfer portal. And I would agree with you. You're absolutely correct. But Dino and Syracuse football were struggling and failing and falling well before any of those things happened. They have a choice. Syracuse has a choice of who they want to be as they move forward. And all I pray, whatever choice they make, is that the community and the kids don't suffer. That's what I care about. Because it's about them. These student athletes will never have another chance to go through college. They'll never have another chance to play this sport. And they may never play the sport again after college. So they don't deserve to suffer. And the people of my city that I love dearly, they don't deserve to be told we're going to do the exact same thing over and over again, hoping that there's going to be a different result. I would not like to think Syracuse is in a city of insanity. So for the university to ask us to be is quite frankly ignorant, naive, and ridiculous. We'll take a step aside for a fast break. Speaking of ignorant, naive, and ridiculous, we're going to talk about a coach that just got fired this week. And I saw it coming the day that he left the school that he was at. We'll talk about it after this. Avicoli's, located on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, has been your trusted neighbor for decades. Located just steps from Liverpool High School, we're happy to have the Liverpool Warriors on-site, on-location broadcast at Avicoli's through Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every single month, featuring student athletes, coaches, and administration throughout the year from Liverpool High School. Head out to Avicoli's today on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, open Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. We'd love to see you out there. And of course, you can call them at 315-622-5100 for takeout, delivery, and catering. That's 315-622-5100. And also find them on myavicolis.com. That's myavicollis.com. Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9campground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to Canine Campground.
PB&J's Lunchbox, the food truck that you love finding all throughout Central and Upstate New York, now has a street-side cafe. So when you're craving their traditional favorites as well as their out-of-box amazing menu items, you can now head to 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. Located just minutes from the highway, the Thruway, Destiny USA, and Onondaga Lake Parkway, PB&J's Lunchbox Street-Side Cafe is there for you Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner all throughout the day. Get breakfast for dinner, dinner for lunch, whatever you fancy, including their award-winning grilled peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Find them at 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. PB&J's Lunchbox, where we love to know what's in your lunchbox. This is a special message from 317 at Montgomery restaurant owner Joel Carpenter. Open Tuesday through Saturday for your dining pleasure on 317 Montgomery Street in Syracuse, New York.
We wanted to be a part of the resurgence of Syracuse. We saw a lot of money being put into bringing people back downtown and thought that, we'd like to be a part of that. I love putting together a good dish where people see it first, they fall in love with it, and then it tastes just as good as it looks. We want to provide the best food in Syracuse that we possibly can, and we want you to leave here talking to your family, your friends about what you had to eat first and foremost, but also our service, and to walk out feeling like you're part of our family. I work out in the front of the house a lot, and I love walking to every single table, asking them how everything is, and people looking at me and smiling and saying, this is the most amazing short rib I've ever had. This is the most amazing filet I've ever had. And Donna is great. Sarah's amazing. Thank you for coming over and talking to us. And then them just being truly happy for the experience that they've gotten.
317 at Montgomery Restaurant, part of the fabric of downtown Syracuse, located on 317 Montgomery Street in Syracuse, New York. Open Tuesday through Saturday for a unique and memorable dining experience. In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville Bees. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you. Looking for your next ride? Look no further than Great Lakes Honda City, located on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Serving our community for decades, their new and pre-owned vast array of vehicles are available to you Monday through Saturday on site. To search from home, shop at GreatLakesHondaCity.com. Call 315-365-5576 to set up an appointment. That's 315-365-5576 for Great Lakes Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Great cars, great people, Great Lakes.
Our corporate purpose at Chick-fil-A is to glorify God by being faithful stewards of all that's entrusted to us and to positively influence all those who come in contact with Chick-fil-A. And what became increasingly clear from our success in Cicero is that people love Chick-fil-A. And also I think we recognized that, we had a great opportunity to grow the brand and grow our platform. I felt incredibly grateful when I was selected to be a Chick-fil-A operator. I think what it's meant for me, what I've come to realize on a very deep level is that this is a calling for me. It's not a career, it's not a job. The Lord called me to be a Chick-fil-A operator and to use these restaurants to glorify Him and to positively influence other people. I'm blessed. I'm very blessed.
Head to Chick-fil-A Clay on 3974 State Route 31 in Liverpool, New York. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. Appreciate you being here every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And as I said we were going to talk about here, I actually wrote an article about what we're about to talk about, and that is the firing of Jimbo Fisher. So we're going to talk about that here. Greg said, how about that Jimbo buyout, though? Yeah, I saw that buyout years ago, man, and it was the highest before Kirby Smart's at Georgia was 92.6 plus, but 77.5 plus $1 million buyout. Texas A&M football program must be printing money Coach O got the bag when he was fired from LSU. Also, SEC coaches making bank. Yeah. Well, this is the thing. They want to deter them from leaving, but gosh forbid that they don't want them to stay. It costs you money. So, I mean, it costs you a lot of money. So, it's the reality. The reality is it's put in place. These buyouts are put in place to deter any coach from leaving or even the thought of leaving. But if it doesn't work out with the coach, now you're stuck, right? So Jimbo's a no-go for Texas A&M's future. With 8 years left on his contract and a buyout of over $77.5 million, Jimbo Fisher has been fired by Texas A&M. Fisher's buyout, the second largest of any current NCAA Division 1A, also known as FBS, coach, is behind only Kirby Smart's more than $92.6 million buyout with the Georgia Bulldogs. But that did not deter the Aggies from saying goodbye to their head coach before allowing him to lead the team in their final 2 games of the season. I had said years ago that Fisher should have stayed with the Florida State Seminoles. His record over 8 years at Florida State was 83-23. Fisher guided his team to the postseason in 7 of those 8 years with a 5-2 record, including winning the final Bowl Championship Series BCS National Championship game in 2013, in a season where the Seminoles went undefeated at 14-0 and featured Papa Joe's favorite player, famous Jameis. Jimbo Fisher's time at Florida State from 2010 to 2017 went as follows: 10-4, 9-4, 12-2, 14-0, 13-1, 10-3, 10-3, and 5-6, with 6 of his 8 years being double-digit winning campaigns, plus a national championship, and the recruits he was bringing in, who commonly went on to play in the NFL. It seemed to me that Fisher could have remained at Florida State forever. But going to a Southeastern Conference, SEC, going to the SEC, any football program in the SEC commonly offers a substantial pay raise from most other conferences, and those high numbers in a coach's bank account seem to come in a very short amount of time as well. Not only do they offer you a ton of money, but they offer you a ton of money in a short period of time. So in my mindset, he could have made that money at Florida State over 6-7 years, but you can make it at Texas A&M in 3. So however, looking at that high money and everything he could get in a short period of time, with what Fisher accomplished at Florida State, I didn't see a world where he would have ever been let go from Florida State, arguably. Instead, I saw a world where he could coach as long as he wanted to, have a statue on campus in his honor that would be there forever, and eventually make the same amount of money that Texas A&M was offering, if not more, over time, albeit having to wait a little bit longer, like I had said before, so that Florida State could find a way to pay him, maybe not as quickly as Texas A&M or a team in the SEC, but that eventually he could, and he would have more job security at Florida State than he would with an SEC school like Texas A&M. But Fisher decided to move on from the Seminoles to a conference where your leash is arguably the shortest and the tightest in the country. In his time with the Aggies, Fisher from 2018 to now has gone 9-4, 8-5, 9-1, 8-4, 5-7, and 6-4 currently this season before being let go. Fisher's first 3 years at Texas A&M ended in 3 straight bowl games, all victories. Gator Bowl in 2018-19, Texas Bowl in 2019-20, and Orange Bowl in 2020-21. Fisher had wins over 13th-ranked Kentucky and 8th-ranked LSU in his first season at the helm of the Texas A&M football program, followed by a win over 4th-ranked Florida State in his 3rd season, where the Aggies went 9-1 overall, winning the last 8 games of the season, including a bowl victory over 14th-ranked North Carolina. In his 4th season with Texas A&M, which was 2021, Fisher led the team to wins over 12th-ranked Auburn and over Alabama, who was ranked 1st in the nation at the time of play. There are coaches that have spent their entire tenure in the SEC never defeating the Crimson Tide one time, and Fisher did it in his first 4 seasons at a time where the Crimson Tide were regarded as the best team in the country. Last season, Fisher led Texas A&M to victories over 6th-ranked LSU, 10th-ranked Arkansas, and 13th-ranked Miami. But under Fisher here in 2023, the Aggies have lost to every ranked team that they've faced thus far, including 11th-ranked Crimson Tide, 19th-ranked Volunteers of Tennessee, and the 11th-ranked Rebels of Ole Miss. Fisher does not have any key victories this season. 3 straight bowl games, wins over ranked teams, and even a win over Alabama, which is something many FBS teams cannot boast of, ever, seemingly do not matter for the Texas A&M decision makers. Those happened in the past, and the SEC forgets quicker than most. I said it before that fast money versus a place to call home, arguably for the rest of your career, was the choice that Fisher had to make. He took the fast money, something many have done, only to receive an SEC tombstone with his name on it, joining an ever-growing graveyard of coaches that did not meet the highly inflated standards of the conference. Nevertheless, Fisher's tears will be mopped up by many large bills as he decides the next step in his career with enough money to uproot his SEC tombstone and place it gently on the sands of his own private island. That's the story. The SEC with the shortest and tightest leash in the country when it comes to college football, but also that if they do kick you out, with the biggest bank account to set you up for the rest of your life times 10. Jimbo Fisher's grandchildren of his grandchildren of his grandchildren of his grandchildren are going to have money. So he got fired. Why? Because he's in the SEC. And he didn't win an SEC championship. He got fired. Why? Because after you beat Alabama once, who, again, most teams in the SEC and in the country cannot ever say that they've done consistently, and there's some teams that, I mean, think about it. There are coaches that have coached in the SEC that never beat Alabama once. There are schools, institutions in college football that have never beaten Alabama once in their entire history. What Jimbo Fisher did in his first 4 seasons, and at all, was beat Alabama. How many people have been hired and fired in and out of the SEC in the last decade who couldn't beat Alabama? And Jimbo Fisher did it. But I said it. I said, now that he's beaten Alabama, his fan base is going to expect him to do it every single year. The boosters are going to expect him to do it every single year, because he's proven that he can. And that raises the bar. The SEC's bar is high. Texas A&M, over the last couple of years, built new offices for their staff. The offices they were in were leaps and bounds bigger than offices that you would imagine somebody would have. Yet, the offices they moved into were bigger. Because down in the South, especially in the SEC, bigger's better. And whatever you have, you want more of. So, he beat a bunch of ranked teams. But why didn't he beat them all? He beat Alabama once. Why didn't he beat them every year? Why didn't he, with Texas A&M, go to the SEC championship game in the place of Alabama? Well, that's questions that you can ask. You have the right to ask. But I would say to you, why isn't Ole Miss going to the SEC championship game? Why is LSU not consistently going there? Why did Coach O win a national championship and get fired? Why is Auburn not going to the ACC championship or the SEC championship game? Why is Mississippi State not going? Why is Arkansas not going? They're all in the same division with Alabama and Texas A&M. Why didn't Tennessee win a national championship? Why has Missouri been good this year but not in prior years? Why has South Carolina been struggling for so many years? How come Vanderbilt's in the basement of the SEC? How come the Florida Gators haven't gotten it right with multiple different coaches? How come Kentucky goes up and down and plays spoiler, but they haven't won an SEC championship? How come the Georgia, how come they're not doing that and vying for it recently? How come, you can really not say anything other than, honestly, besides Georgia and Alabama, what team has performed consistently well in the SEC and won consistent championships? It's Alabama and it's Georgia of recent history. That's who it is. It's, if you're going to fire Jimbo Fisher, then you can arguably fire Lane Kiffin, fire Brian Kelly, fire Beamer in South Carolina, Fire Napier at Florida. Fire Heupel at Tennessee. If this is the bar, if the bar is beat Alabama every year and win an SEC championship, well, folks, a lot of schools aren't doing that. I mean, that's the thing. When you get hired, and this is how I would think about it, if I was getting offered a job by the SEC and they said, we want you to coach whoever, Missouri. Okay, let's pick a team that's not doing that great this year. Arkansas, Vanderbilt, right? South Carolina. So they say, Dan, we want you to come coach South Carolina. And we're going to pay you $8 million a year, and you're coming from a school that pays you $3 million. I have to know that I have maybe 3 years to beat Alabama or Georgia, depending on what side I'm on, to win an SEC championship and to vie for a national championship, or there's a good chance I'm going to get fired. See, besides Georgia and Alabama, who aren't in trouble right now, albeit people did ask for the firing of Nick Saban within the last 2 years, and I want you to understand that that did happen because there are people on this planet that are so stupid that they say things out loud that make no sense, but in their brain, it makes sense. Because why? What have you done for me lately, right? I had an Alabama fan tell me, if we don't win the national championship, it's not a good season. If we go 14-1, it's a failure. Because Alabama's used to winning championships. The bar's so high. But when you get hired as a coach in the SEC, and typically you're getting hired to a program that's not performing well, because why would you be hired to a program that is performing well? Although LSU did fire Les Miles when he had an 81% winning percentage, and that will always make no sense to me. And Coach O had won a national championship, and the next year struggled, and they fired him. So maybe it's just an LSU thing. I don't know. But and I'm joking about that because there's SEC schools that just, they have these thoughts like, if we hire you to come to our program that is struggling, you need to, in 2 to 3 years, turn this whole thing around, beat Alabama or Georgia or both, and vie for a national championship. I think even if Jimbo Fisher had won an SEC championship within the last 5 years, he still could have been fired. He still could have ended up in the same place right now that he's in. And granted, folks, they're going to a bowl game this year. Jimbo led them to a bowl game this year. Greg said, can make an argument of LSU over the last 20 years before Saban, Bama had lean years. Yeah, they did. They did. And what were they doing before Saban? Recycle. You know what I mean? Just go through coaches. Year after year, there are only a limited number of elite and national championship caliber teams. Right, and the SEC doesn't seem to understand that. If you get hired in the SEC, your leash is the tightest and the shortest in the country. It doesn't matter what school you get hired to. It doesn't matter if it's South Carolina, Vanderbilt, Florida, Kentucky, Tennessee, Missouri, Auburn, Texas A&M, LSU, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, or Arkansas. And I didn't mention Alabama and Georgia because Alabama and Georgia have been winning championships in recent history. So Kirby Smart has a little bit longer of a leash, maybe, and Nick Saban. But I'm talking about these other schools, right? You fire a coach at Vandy, you bring in a new coach. They expect you to take a Vandy team who's currently 0-7 in the SEC and 2-9 overall and get yourself to the middle of the pack, then to the upper third, and then to have a winning season, and now they want you to beat Alabama. If you get hired in the SEC and you're not hired to Alabama or Georgia, your job is to beat Alabama or Georgia, get to the SEC championship, and vie for a national title. And even if you do that at Orgeron, you could still get fired. That's my whole argument. I knew Jimbo Fisher's days were numbered at Texas A&M before he even stepped foot on campus because it's the SEC. And no matter what he does, it's what have you done for me lately. But it's not what have you done for me lately like every other college football team. It is what have you done for me lately on cocaine. It's what have you done for me lately on speed. That's what it is. Because you have to do things so well and so consistently. And whether they say it to you or not, when you get hired in the SEC, your job is to beat Alabama. Maybe they say Alabama and Georgia because of the last couple of years of Georgia. But typically, over the last decade, your job was to come into the SEC and beat Alabama. Jimbo Fisher did that. But that was 2 years ago. Think about that. How many coaches have been hired to take an SEC team not named Alabama and bring them up to national ranks, national prowess? And they didn't do it. And they never beat Alabama. And here we have Jimbo Fisher beating Alabama in his first 4 seasons. Going 9-1 in one of his seasons. Winning the last 8 games. Beating ranked teams every season but this season. And he's gone. They don't even let him coach the last 2 games of the season. And I saw the writing on the wall when he left Florida State because I said, okay, Texas A&M is going to pay you more money. But Florida State was going to give you more time. And I understand that time is money. But I argued when he left Florida State that Jimbo Fisher could have coached at Florida State for the next 15 years, made a ton of money, made the same amount of money that he would make in 15 years that maybe he would make at Texas A&M in 3, or maybe he would do that in 8 years or 9 years and then have more on top of it. But my argument was you're going to have a small window in the SEC, which I typically consider 3 years, and he made it past that window, but he also beat Alabama in his 4th year, so they gave him a little more time. And maybe COVID helped, I don't know. But you look at that small, tiny window and a ton of money, and then I look at this large room, bigger than a window, and I feel that, and I argued this years ago, that if Jimbo Fisher stayed at Florida State, he would have more success, more consistency. He could be a darling. I mean, think about Jimbo Fisher right now in the ACC. And I don't want to take anything away from Mike Norvell because I told y'all that Mike Norvell was going to lead this team to the top 2. Yeah, I told you what was coming with Mike Norvell. And to those of you that believe me, good stuff. To those of you that don't, that's because you follow the narrative that he came from Memphis, and Memphis isn't the American, and American's not a power conference, which is a stupid thing to say because history does not show you that that is true. So, and if you disagree with me, then why are the power conferences every single year trying to take coaches? Why have they taken entire institutions and taken players from the American? Every single year, the American Athletic Conference has to fight to keep their coaches. Why? Because the ACC, the SEC, the Big 12, the Pac-12, and the Big 10 are trying to take them. Why are you trying to take a coach from a conference that doesn't have power? What is Cincinnati without Luke Fickell? Say word, son. So, what is Memphis without Mike Norvell? They're doing better than Cincinnati, but what is Memphis? What has it been without Mike Norvell? Under Ryan Silverfield, it's taken time. It's taken longer. But I told you what Mike Norvell was going to bring to Florida State. Now, if they didn't have Mike Norvell right now, and Florida State was struggling, I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to rekindle with Jimbo. But to me, if I'm Jimbo Fisher, I'm going, I can make a ton of money in a short period of time, probably get fired at Texas A&M. Or I can make the same amount of money. It might take me a little bit longer, but I can coach here for the rest of my life, and they're going to build a statue of me, and I'm going to be known as one of the greatest ever. It's going to be me and Bobby Bowden. And he decided to leave. He took the fast money, and just like that graveyard that the SEC continues to grow, his tombstone is now in it. Jimbo Fisher, to some people, is a failure in the SEC, a failure at Texas A&M. Ain't that something? A failure. A failure with the record that he had. A failure for consistently defeating top 25, top 10, number 1 team in the country ranked schools. 9-4, 8-5, 9-1, 8-4, 5-7, 6-4. You know who can't boast of having those records over the last few seasons? Vanderbilt, Missouri, South Carolina, Florida, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Auburn. To me, Jimbo Fisher is one of the best coaches in the SEC. But they said no. How long is Lane Kiffin going to stick around? Because he's getting close to beating Alabama. He's right behind Alabama. But Alabama's going to the SEC championship game. Missouri, right? Look at where they are. But will they be there next year? Is this an enigma? We'll see. Tennessee with Josh Heupel, he's been relevant, but he's not beating Georgia, and he's not going to the SEC title game. So how long is he going to stick around? Dan Mullen lasted, 3 seasons at Florida? How long are they going to keep Billy Napier? This is season 2. Clark Lee at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt has been a dumpster fire for many years. And the former linebackers coach under Scott Schaefer, Clark Lee, is now the head coach in Vanderbilt. How long do they keep him, or do they blame him for the problems that Vanderbilt has had for decades? The SEC hires you, gives you a ton of money, but that deal, for as much money as they're going to give you, you got a tiny window, and you have to almost never lose, no matter what your team is. We're not talking about your Alabama. We're not talking about your Georgia. We're talking about your Missouri, your Florida, your Mississippi State, your Texas A&M, your Arkansas. You could have gone 0 in the conference last year. Now you got to vie for a championship. Because every institution in the SEC wants to be at the top. And you would say, well, Dan, everybody in every conference wants to be at the top. Yeah, that's true. They do. But in the SEC, until Nick Saban decides to retire, and at this point, until Kirby Smart decides to move on, I don't see anybody consistently beating Alabama or Georgia. Alabama was considered to be weaker this year. They have 1 loss. And if they win out, they play in the SEC championship, and they win the SEC championship, mark my words, Georgia and Alabama will be in the college football playoff. Alabama's not out of it. So, it's a lot of money in a short period of time. But to me, if Jimbo Fisher and the brass at Florida State could finally see eye to eye and work together, I think he could have coached there for the rest of his life. I really do. And now he's looking for a job because he's yet another good coach in the SEC that's not good enough for what I consider to be some very ballooned, inflated, often ridiculous goals. Everybody wants to win a championship, right? Everybody wants to win a championship. But I think fans understand if Syracuse doesn't win an ACC championship. I think that can be understood. I think that people can understand if Vandy doesn't win an SEC championship. But there's things that I think are crazy. And I think that Jimbo Fisher is the latest coach to succumb to the fact that the expectations in the SEC are ridiculous to the time period that coaches are given. And Jimbo was given more time. He was given more than 3 years or almost 3 years. Because I feel like 3 years is the window. But I said it when Charlie Strong got hired at Texas. When Charlie Strong got hired at Texas and he left Louisville, I wanted to grab him and say, don't go. Because I saw the writing on the wall. And I saw the same thing with Jimbo. I was like, man, Jimbo is one of the best coaches in college football. He is one of the biggest, he is one of the top 2 faces of the ACC. And of any sport in the ACC, he's one of the top coaches. If you put all the sports in the ACC together, he was one of the biggest faces that they had. Jimbo Fisher was one of the franchise faces of the ACC, of any sport. You go to the SEC, and you're just another coach who can't beat Alabama and Georgia, who hasn't won a national championship. I'm not saying that people shouldn't vie for conference championships and national championships. Everybody should, or why are you coaching? But boosters and fan bases need to understand the situation. if almost nobody in the country beats Alabama and Georgia, then why are you surprised when the coaches within your conference don't? When Kirby Smart and Nick Saban get to see you every year or every other year or whatever it may be. If it's hard for anybody to beat Alabama or Georgia right now who hasn't seen Alabama or Georgia in 60 years, don't you think it's a little bit easier for Alabama and Georgia to beat the teams they see every year? Like Alabama seeing Texas A&M every year? If I had a coach who had consistent winning records, consistent bowl games, and he beat Alabama once in the last 6 years, I would not be firing him. Look at Dino Babers' record, 41-54. Look at the games he's won. Look at the best win he has, which is Clemson. But the team still went 4-8 that year. I would argue if Jimbo Fisher beat Alabama and went 4-8 in the same season, they would have fired him. Or they would have at least thought about it. That's the difference between conferences, and that's the difference between where Syracuse is at and where Texas A&M thinks they're at. It's funny, Greg, because you just brought up something that I literally thought. He said, what's the percentage that Jimbo Fisher coaches the Syracuse program? If Syracuse actually cared about their football team, and I'm not talking about the student athletes, I'm talking about the university, because the university has consistently shown me that they're not. And they would say, well, Dan, we just invested and we updated the football wing and we did the Lally and we're doing this. Yeah, that's all good. That's phenomenal. You're making your facilities look better. But when a kid comes on campus and sees how cool your facilities are, and then they look at your record over the last decade, and Duke calls them, or put it to you like this. Do you think that Syracuse's facilities are under Duke, under North Carolina, under Clemson, under Florida State? Probably not. Or so do you think that do you think those facilities are less than Syracuse? Probably not. That's what I meant to say if I didn't say it that way. I would venture to say that Syracuse is trying to catch up to North Carolina, Duke, Florida State, Clemson, and so on and so forth. So if you say, well, we updated our facilities, Dan, so obviously we care about football. Your facilities, I'm telling you right now, they're not better than Clemson and Florida State. Your facilities are not going to beat those schools. And even if you said that Syracuse had similar facilities to Virginia, Virginia Tech, NC State, whatever, NC State sells out their tickets every year. Under Dave Doran, how many years have they sold out their tickets? What? I mean, I want to say from what I can remember, it's at least the last 2-3 years. When's the last time Syracuse sold out a game? They haven't. They didn't do it under Greg Robinson. They didn't do it under Doug Marrone. They didn't do it under Scott Schaefer. And they didn't do it under Dino Babers. And when Dino Babers had these huge crowds, a lot of times they were coming to see the other team. When Syracuse played LSU, and there's 33,000 people there, it was like 30,000 LSU fans, and everybody else was from Syracuse. So, to answer your question, Greg, should Jimbo Fisher be on the list for Syracuse to call? Abso-freaking-lutely. Because if what he did at Texas A&M in the SEC was not good enough, he would blow the doors off the ACC coming back, and he would take Syracuse to new heights. Jimbo Fisher should be at the top of the list for Syracuse. But the problem is they don't invest in their football program like they should, and they don't care enough about it, and they're not going to spend the money. You could tell me that you upgraded your facilities, and then the other schools can tell you we didn't have to upgrade our facilities because they were already better. And even when you upgraded them, ours are still better. And even if Syracuse was on the same par as North Carolina's facilities, North Carolina wins. Syracuse doesn't. See, coaches have easy things to say to someone that they're recruiting that's being recruited by Syracuse. Almost every single coach in the ACC, think about it. Think about it right now. And this is my hometown. I love my hometown. But I told you as a broadcaster, I'm impartial. Florida State has better facilities and they win. Louisville, I mean, you look at facility, and I could talk about the facilities that I've been to, but Florida State has gotten better under Mike Norvell in the time that Dino's been at Syracuse. Louisville just changed coaches again, and they're successful. They're number 2 right now. They're going to be playing arguably for the ACC championship with Florida State. North Carolina, Mac Brown comes back, and they go from a 1 to 3 win team to being ranked in the top 25, and in some cases the top, 15, top 10? NC State under Dave Doran. They've gotten better. Virginia Tech. Look at Virginia Tech under Brent Pry. Virginia Tech's gotten better. Virginia Tech's in the top 5 right now. Excuse you. Georgia Tech has gotten better. Boston College has gotten better. Duke has gotten better. Clemson has Dabo, and they want to complain that Dabo's 6-4. Oh my gosh. Dabo, if he was in the SEC, would probably get fired right now. Or they would be like, if you have one more season like this, you're gone. And he's won national championships. Mind you. But I agree with Dabo Swinney that it's ridiculous to even consider firing him with everything he's done for Clemson. Because who knew Clemson football before Dabo? Miami has gotten better under Mario Cristobal. Pitt has had a lot of success under Pat Narduzzi. This is his worst season that he's had in now this being his 9th season. Virginia under Tony Elliott, yes, they've struggled, but they have a key win this season. And Wake Forest, at halftime, arguably Dave Clawson is the best at figuring out Dino Babers no matter what the score is at halftime, home or away. So Syracuse arguably is going in the worst direction of every single one of the 14 schools in the ACC. Calling Jimbo Fisher should not be a thought, it should be a definite, but they won't because they're not going to pay him. They're not going to pay him what he deserves. They're not going to pay him anything close to what he should have. And I don't think they invest in a football program as much as they should. So it's a thought that I had on my mind yesterday, Greg, when I saw that Jimbo got fired. When I talked to Papa Joe about it, because PJ called me up, and he was the one that talked to me about it first. I absolutely believe that they should call Jimbo Fisher if Syracuse has a vacancy. And I'm absolutely telling you that there's no way in hell that he's going to come here. Because you don't have the right people in power, and they're not going to open the bank account for him. Jimbo Fisher should be the absolute call that Syracuse makes. They should be salivating at this. How dare Jimbo Fisher be a free agent? But Syracuse would rather continue the definition of insanity and keep feeding the same narrative to their fans year in and year out that hasn't worked than actually pay for somebody of the caliber of Jimbo Fisher. That's reality. And I'm not trying to knock Dino. I'm saying on the outside looking in to anybody looking at Syracuse's football program, there's a better chance that Dino stays another year than they even call Jimbo Fisher. Or they might tell you that they called Jimbo and whether or not they did and said, oh, we just couldn't afford him. And Syracuse fans would say, that's ridiculous. Because it costs, $80,000 for kids? Let me just put it to you like this. If it costs $80,000 for students to go to Syracuse, and we say that there's 30,000 students at Syracuse, that is, let me see here. I'll put this down here. So that's 9 zeros. So if Syracuse, I'm going to do it right now. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we got 8 zeros. And you got 24, followed by 8 zeros. So you comma there, you comma there. So that means, you comma there, you comma there, and you comma there. So that's $2.4 billion that Syracuse gets from students going to school at Syracuse, not including a single ticket being sold, not including a single drink being sold, not including any merchandise being sold, not including any food being sold, not including, I don't even think, room and board. $2.4 billion a year. Figure out how to pay your coaches. Because I'm sure they got Adrian Autry at a discount too, which isn't fair to Adrian. But it's a lot easier to tell Adrian we're going to give you a pay raise than it is to pay somebody from the outside. Right? You could say to Adrian, we're paying you $1 million, we're going to double it and make it $2 million. We're going to double your salary. But if they had to go out and get like a Brad Stevens back in the day, like if they had made that move with Butler, you're talking $3-4 million just to sit down with the man. Right? Rick Pitino was an assistant under Jim Boeheim. You call Rick Pitino right now, he'd be like, give me 7. And Syracuse would be like, how about 1? And Rick Pitino would go, are you stupid? And then he would coach at St. John's. So like, but you know, you look at this and you say to yourself, this is a perfect situation for Syracuse to call Jimbo Fisher, but they won't. Because they don't invest in the program the way that you want them to. If they did, we wouldn't be here. Case in point. We'll take a step aside for a fast break. We'll be back right after this to wrap up Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora here where sports meets life, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We appreciate you being here, as I'm very excited to bring you, for the first time ever, our commercial block featuring Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory's newest commercial.
Hi, this is Amy from Mother's Cupboard, home of the whole frittata. We are open daily 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For takeout orders, call 315-432-0942 and tune in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our monthly food challenge and try our Wake Up Call signature menu item available 7 days a week. Here at Mother's Cupboard, we are Central New York, and it's our honor to serve you.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory remind us that every day is worth celebrating at 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. Open Monday through Saturday in-store and always online at maandpaspopcorn.com. Serving our Central New York community and beyond, order anywhere, anytime at maandpaspopcorn.com. Stop in to get a tin at Ma and Pa's on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York to get your half-price refills for the rest of your life. Come to Ma and Pa's for your holiday gift giving for family, friends, employees, and clients. And remember, for fundraising and events, to call 315-450-6272. That's 315-450-6272. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you?
This is Jimmer Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. He kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily. We bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have in any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvalite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvalite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant.
GG Cards and Breaks. Like, comment, subscribe.
GG Cards and Breaks, available to you on 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse, New York, right off of Teal Ave, is your home for all your sports card needs. Get your singles graded cards as well as packs and boxes right there on site on location. Hockey, football, baseball, basketball, soccer, and more, including Pokemon and the new Disney Lorcana card collectible and playable game are all at GG Cards and Breaks, as well as all the supplies you need. If you need a case for your cards, as well as your binders, sheets, top loaders, sleeves, everything is right there. Your one-stop shop for the hobby that connects you to the teams and players that you love. GG Cards and Breaks, open Monday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and on Sundays from 10 to 5 on 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse, New York. And make sure you join us at the Wildcat Sports Pub this Thursday, November 16th at 6:30 to 9:30 p.m. on-site on location, 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. Join us this Thursday, November 16th at the Wildcat as we bring GG Cards and Breaks Trade Night on the road. Buy, sell, and trade with GG Cards and Breaks at the Wildcat Sports Pub. We'll be at the restaurant taking everything from GG Cards and Breaks on the road to the Wildcat. We'll see you there. Cannot wait to hang out with you and have some fun. And I will be on stage broadcasting live. So make sure you come this Thursday, November 16th, 6:30 p.m. to the Wildcat Sports Pub for our GG Cards and Breaks Trade Night on the road. With that being said, I want to thank you for tuning into today's broadcast of Wake Up Call on youtube.com and facebook.com, both /WakeUpCallDT, and on wakeupcalldt.podbean.com worldwide. Once the show go live, you could check out our shows at Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, Player FM, Podbean, Podchaser.com, Podvine, Spotify, TuneIn, and YouTube. All you have to do is search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT. A big time thanks to our incredible partners, Carvel DeWitt, Mon Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. Make sure you go there for your fundraising needs, as well as your holiday gift baskets for family, friends, coworkers, colleagues, employees, neighbors. 315-450-6272 to give them a call at Ma and Pa's, or to go to 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York, and go and see them for yourself. The Wildcat Sports Pub, GG Cards and Breaks, Chick-fil-A Cicero, which will be opening very soon, Chick-fil-A Clay, right here for you on 3974 State Route 31 in Liverpool, 317 at Montgomery Street. The name of the location is the name of the restaurant in downtown Syracuse. K9 Camp Dog Daycare, Pizza Man, Great Lakes Honda City, Avicoli's, K9 Campground Dog Boarding, PB&J's Lunchbox, Mother's Cupboard, North Star Nutrition, which I'm very excited to say the mic drop has already taken off. As soon as before it was even on the menu, people ordered it. Then on Friday, November 10th, when it officially hit the menu, people went out and got it. and you continue to support it at North Star Nutrition and Nutrition Wave in Cicero. Proudly working with them both, bringing my drink to you, a healthy tea that'll give you that energy and also tastes absolutely great. Pomegranate, blueberry, blackberry, strawberry, and watermelon all mixed together in what I like to call the mic drop. Get it at North Star Nutrition on 628 South Main Street, North Syracuse today. And you can also get it today at Nutrition Wave in Cicero by going to 6197 State Route 31 in Cicero, New York. The Lemoyne College Dolphins are exclusive multimedia marketing partners with Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Find the Dolphins every single Wednesday during Dolphin Time at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. AD and DT with Athletics Director Bob Beretta and myself, Dan Tortora, and the Dolphin Dive coming to you every single month, diving into the stories of student athletes, coaches, administration, future Dolphins, and alumni. And you can find all of this content by subscribing to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, as well as by going to wakeupcalldt.com and underneath the exclusive partners, clicking on the Lemoyne Dolphins tab. And of course, for more information, go to LeMoyneDolphins.com. As always, fins up. The Bryan and Stratton College Bobcats of Syracuse are exclusive multimedia marketing partners with Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Find the Bobcats every single month with the Bobcat Buzz specials airing with student athletes, coaches, and administration all throughout the year. We just gave you a plethora of Bobcat Buzz new episodes featuring the women's and men's soccer teams in celebration of them both making the national tournament. The women's team is the number 1 overall seed in the nation, and the men's team is the number 2 overall seed in the nation. Make sure you check out all that content on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. Remember to click subscribe and go to wakeupcalldt.com, and underneath the exclusive partners, you will find the Bobcats page, and you can follow their content there as well. With that being said, here on the show, Facebook at wakeupcalldt, X at calldt, Instagram at wakeupcall_dt. Over the weekend, I went and saw the first ever Division I home game for the Lemoyne women's basketball team. The Lemoyne men's basketball team will have their first home game ever as a Division I program tonight. So they get their shot tonight. They'll be going up against SUNY Canton, and you could see them at 7 o'clock on Ted Grant Court today, November 13th, this Monday here at 7 p.m. I'll be out there. I hope to see you out there, and I hope you all have a wonderful and safe and amazing day. Big thanks to Kevin Greene for joining me here today. Thank you all for being positive and kind. For anybody that is saying or doing mean or hateful things and things that you would never want somebody to do back to you, I pray for your soul, and I pray for your guidance by God to take you out of that negativity and into positivity. And for those of you that have been treated poorly, I pray that God helps to guide you into that positivity and out of that negativity, and that your soul does not turn dark, but that you stay light, you stay positive, and no matter what people have done to you, said to you, you remember God loves you, love yourself, and don't let anyone's treatment of you dictate a negative treatment of yourself. Be good to you, be good to others, have a great day, and as always,